This is my reinvented Otamatone for CaPC Semester 2. An otamatone is a Japanese instrument shaped like an eighth note that uses simple musical synthesis with a user's position and pressure on a fretboard. I was inspired to reinvent this instrument from finding musicians performing covers of famous songs such as AC/DC's Thunderstruck. Not only was I inspired by the covers, but also by David Cooper's slider-controlled instrument completely made on Max MSP. I was amazed at how one can build an instrument solely from a slider and a MIDI keyboard. Although a relatively simple-looking instrument, the original interface of the Otamatone is rather complicated for the user. It has no indicators to show which note the user is playing, nor any visual cues to detect which pitch they are at. Therefore, this design could be complicated for younger audiences wanting to learn an instrument. As I wanted my Otamatone to be an instrument for younger users, I thought of ways to make the interface more compatible. First, I connected a simple slider and pressure pad to my x-OSC to replicate the basic function of the original Otamatone. Grabbing inspiration from the Max MSP documentation on sliders and the change function, I rigged up the pressure pad to only emit noise when the user presses down on it. I added single conditioning to this part so the user could get a wider and smoother sound when pressing on the pad, as well as sliding the slider. This allowed data to not jump around when activated and have a linear motion instead of a sporadic one. I also replicated the Otamatone's diction by adding a volume shift when the user adds more pressure to the pad. This allowed a wider range of synthesized noises to be played while also engaging the younger audiences to see what kind of fun noises they can make. After some external reading about mapping with visual cues, I learned that I wanted to use transparent mapping. As Connie Malamed puts in her book, visual cues can reduce the load on working memory by reducing effort involved in a visual search and interpretation. Using information from CaPC's Week 6 workshop, I connected an RGB to my x-OSC, and then patched it to connect to my slider. This feature is what I believe improves the original design of the Otamatone. As you will see in my demo video, the slider in resting position emits a dark blue light. However, as the user slides up, it starts to change into a lighter shade of blue, then ultimately goes white if they go all the way up. This visual cue allows the user directly to relate the color of the light to what pitch they are at, making it cognitively easier to remember where a certain sound was made. It ultimately makes this design easier and engaging for younger audiences to want to learn the instrument and come back to it instead of getting frustrated that they may not understand entirely. Overall, I feel like this instrument was a success. It implements a rather simple function, but allows the user to feel comfortable with it instead of being scared to pick it up due to lack of indications on the instrument. However, I do feel like I could have improved the diction of the instrument within the pressure pad. Right now, if the user presses down, it starts as a wah sound, then adding more pressure adds an ah to the noise. I think if I added some element to have more recognizable sound when the user adds more pressure, it would have been easier to see the change of state. I also think that adding a wider range to both the pressure pad and slider would help indicate the change more. In the future, I will be reading a lot more documentation than I did on Max MSP to get a fuller understanding of the program, as I feel my options of making an instrument were limited just due to lack of knowledge. I feel like if I got a better grasp on more functions, I could easily make a more advanced instrument in the future. For right now, still very proud of myself and of what I created. Thanks for watching.